Listen up, because I'm only going to say this once. My name is Commander Jax Talorian, 37 cycles in the Nexian Imperial Fleet, decorated veteran of the Orion conflict, and currently the most miserable officer in the entire galaxy. Why, you ask? Because I've been ordered to sit across from General Vaxor of the Drelvi Coalition, the same slimy tentacled abomination whose forces vaporized my home colony, and we pretend we're interested in peace. Peace. After 2 centuries of warfare. What a joke. The humans call this place Neutral Ground Station Alpha, a massive orbital platform constructed specifically for these so-called diplomatic talks. I call it a prison with better lighting. The station hangs in orbit around Earth's moon, a constant reminder of who's really pulling the strings in this galactic puppet show. Commander Talorian, please adjust your breathing apparatus. Your methane output is exceeding station parameters, chirps the human mediator, Eliza Morgan. Her artificial smile hasn't faltered once in the 3 days we've been trapped here. I grunt and twist the dial on my respirator. Better. Much appreciated, she says, making a note on her datapad. Now, shall we continue with Article 7 regarding the demilitarization of the Proxima Centauri system? Across the polished obsidian table, General Vaxor's facial tentacles writhe in what I've learned is their version of laughter. The Nexian Empire, demilitarize. I'd sooner watch my spawn hatch in a salt bath. I lean forward, my exoskeleton creaking. Careful, General. Your spawn might find themselves in exactly that situation if you continue to occupy our mining colonies. Ambassador Prell, my diplomatic counterpart from the Nexian High Command, shoots me a warning glare. His thin, gray fingers tap nervously on the table, a clear signal to shut my mouth before I start another interstellar incident. Gentlemen, Eliza interrupts, her voice somehow both soft and commanding. That's the thing about humans. They're physically unimpressive, no natural armor, pitiful sensory capabilities, and embarrassingly fragile bodies, yet they've managed to become the galaxy's peacekeepers. How? By being just annoying enough that working with them is marginally better than fighting them. Perhaps we should take a brief recess, Eliza suggests, though everyone in the room knows it's not really a suggestion. As the delegation files out, I catch Ambassador Prell muttering under his breath, 200 years of war might be preferable to 2 more days of this. For once, I completely agree with the bureaucrat. But neither of us could possibly know that in less than an hour, everything would change, and not because of any diplomatic breakthrough, but because of something far more powerful than peace treaties or military might. Human children. The universe's most unexpected weapon. The war between the Nexian Empire and the Drelvi Coalition began, as most idiotic conflicts do, over a misunderstanding. 2 centuries ago, our exploration vessel detected valuable quantum ore deposits in the Procyon system. Coincidentally, a Drelvi survey ship made the same discovery on the same day. Both empires claimed the system. Both refused to budge. Both sent military escorts. And then, some trigger-happy Drelvi captain, at least according to our history books, fired the first shot. 1 shot. That's all it took to ignite a conflict that has claimed billions of lives across 17 star systems. I was born into this war. My clutch siblings and I emerged from our gestation pods with tactical simulators already programmed into our neural networks. By my 10th cycle, I could field strip a plasma rifle blindfolded. By my 15th, I had commanded my first skirmish against a Drelvi outpost. The conflict isn't just politics for me. It's personal. The Drelvi orbital bombardment of colony Nexus 7 killed my entire spawning unit. 12,000 Nexians, vaporized in under 3 minutes. And yet here I am, sharing recycled air with General Vaxor, whose military record includes orchestrating that very attack. The 6-limbed Drelvi commander sits across from me now, during our recess, slurping some gelatinous nutrition from a pressurized container. His skin glistens with a metallic sheen under the station lights, and his primary eyes, all 4 of them, occasionally glance in my direction with what I can only interpret as smug satisfaction. Ambassador Prell approaches my table, his ceremonial cape flowing behind him. Unlike me, Prell is a pure-blood high Nexian. His elongated skull bears the traditional crest markings of the diplomatic corps, and his voice carries the distinctive musical undertones of the capital planet's dialect. "Commander," he whispers, "this negotiation cannot fail. The High Command has authorized me to make significant concessions if necessary." I nearly choke on my methane supplement. Concessions? After what they did to our colonies? "The war is bankrupting our empire," Prell replies. 4 consecutive generations have known nothing but conflict. Our resource reserves are depleted by 78%. We must adapt or perish. That's when Eliza Morgan reappears, flanked by 2 other humans. I've always found it fascinating how these pink-skinned, furless creatures manage to position themselves at the center of galactic diplomacy. They were barely achieving atmospheric flight when our civilizations were already battling across the stars. Yet somehow, when they finally developed FTL travel and encountered our war, they didn't pick sides. Instead, they established themselves as mediators, traders, and information brokers, the perfect neutral party. Their strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. They offered technologies and resources to both sides, carefully balanced to maintain equilibrium. They created neutral zones for commerce that both empires desperately needed. And most cleverly, they made themselves so economically and diplomatically valuable that attacking them would be suicidal for either faction. "Commander Talorian," Eliza says, her face uncharacteristically grave. "Ambassador Prell." "General Vaxor, we need you all in the command center immediately." Vaxor's tentacles stiffen a sign of alarm in Drelvi body language. "What has happened? Has one of our fleets violated the temporary ceasefire?" "No," Eliza says, tapping rapidly on her communication device. "We've received a distress signal from a human transport vessel. It's drifting into the Kuiper debris field with total engine failure. There are 43 children aboard." And just like that, the war that defined 2 centuries suddenly becomes the least important thing in the room. The command center of Neutral Ground Station Alpha is a testament to human efficiency. Unlike the gaudy, over-engineered control rooms of Nexian battlecruisers or the organic, quasi-sentient nerve centers of Drelvi vessels, this room is all straight lines, with clear displays and pragmatic design. No wasted space, no unnecessary flourishes. Just like humans themselves, deceptively simple on the surface, surprisingly effective in practice. Right now, the room is in controlled chaos. Human technicians dart between holographic displays while Eliza briefs us on the situation. Behind her, a massive view screen shows a damaged transport vessel tumbling slowly through space and solar radiation glinting off its hull as it edges closer to a dense field of asteroids and debris. The vessel is the Stellar Horizons, a colony transport ferrying children from Earth to our settlement on Europa, Eliza explains, her voice tight but professional. 43 children between the ages of 4 and 12 Earth years, plus 9 adult crew members. "What happened to it?" Ambassador Prell asks, his elongated fingers steepled in what I recognize as his analytical posture. "They encountered an uncharted quantum filament," responds a human technician, pushing his optical correction device's glasses. I think they call them up his nasal bridge. "Tore straight through their propulsion system and damaged their navigation array. They're operating on emergency power, which is failing rapidly." General Vaxor's translator buzzes as he speaks. "And the crew? Are they not trained for emergency procedures?" Eliza's face does that thing human faces do when they're suppressing strong emotions, a tightening around the eyes, a slight tension in the jaw. The filament strike caused a cascade failure in the ship's artificial gravity. 7 crew members were killed instantly. The captain and 1 engineer survived but are severely injured. I step closer to the view screen, studying the trajectory calculations. "The children?" "Sealed in the education and recreation compartments," Eliza says. It was an automatic safety protocol when the ship detected hull breaches in other sections. The captain managed to get that message out before losing consciousness. Ambassador Prell looks confused, but surely the ship's automated systems were fried by the quantum surge, interrupts the technician. Life support in the children's compartments is running on isolated backup power cells. They have perhaps 2 hours of breathable atmosphere remaining. And approximately 75 minutes before the vessel enters the densest portion of the debris field, adds another human, a female with dark skin and complex braided hair patterns. At that point, structural integrity will almost certainly fail. I do quick calculations in my head. Your nearest rescue vessel, 4 hours away at maximum speed, Eliza says quietly. The room falls silent. Even through our various atmospheric suits and breathing apparatuses, I can sense the shift in tension. 2 centuries of diplomatic training couldn't prepare Ambassador Prell for this moment. His ceremonial markings seem to pale slightly. What about our respective ships? General Vaxor asks, breaking the silence. His primary eyes blink independently of each other, a Drelvi expression of rapid thought. Both the Nexian cruiser and my battle carrier are docked at this station. Neither vessel is equipped for rescue operations, Ambassador Prell objects. Our ship is a diplomatic transport with minimal emergency facilities. I can't help but laugh. It comes out as a rasping sound through my respirator. Are you serious, Ambassador? The indomitable Resolve may wear diplomatic colors, but it's a Thunderclap-class destroyer with a full complement of tactical shuttles. We just removed the weapon mounts before coming to this charade of a peace conference. Vaxor's facial tentacles twitch in what might almost be appreciation. The Drelvi vessel is similarly versatile. On the view screen, the transport gives a sickening lurch as it collides with a smaller piece of debris. The impact sends it spinning more rapidly toward the asteroid field. One of the children's compartments just lost 30% of its remaining oxygen, reports the technician, his voice rising slightly. The impact damaged another power cell. Eliza looks between us, her diplomatic mask finally cracking to reveal raw desperation. These are children. Our children. They've done nothing to deserve this. They know nothing of our conflicts. Please. That's when I notice something strange. Ambassador Prell and General Vaxor, sworn enemies representing empires that have slaughtered each other's people for generations, are standing side by side, both leaning toward the view screen with identical expressions of concern. No, something deeper, something almost primal. What are your vessel's capabilities? Vaxor demands, not of Eliza, but of me directly. Enemy addressing enemy without intermediaries. A protocol violation that would normally trigger diplomatic alarms. But somehow, in this moment, none of that matters. Fast deployment tactical shuttles, tractor beams, cutting equipment, and emergency medical facilities, I respond immediately. Yours? Telekinetic retrieval technology, atmospheric generators, and phase-shifting capabilities for navigating debris, Vaxor states. I look at the human children's vessel, then back at my ancestral enemy. For the first time in my military career, I see a Drelvi not as a tentacled abomination, but as a potential ally. We're going to need both, I say. Commander Talorian, this is highly irregular. Ambassador Prell hisses at me, pulling me aside as the command center erupts into activity. His diplomatic markings pulse with agitation. The Drelvi cannot be trusted. This could be an elaborate trap. I stare at him in disbelief. A trap? They orchestrated a quantum filament, damaged a human transport, and killed 7 crew members just to what exactly? Lure us into an asteroid field? Across the room, General Vaxor is having a similar argument with his diplomatic attaché, a spindly Drelvi whose name I never bothered to learn. Their tentacles gesticulate wildly, translator devices struggling to keep their voices private. Our telekinetic retrieval system is clearly superior for this operation, announces a Drelvi technical officer, loud enough for everyone to hear. The Nexians should remain here while we handle the rescue. My second-in-command, Lieutenant Karis, bristles visibly, her exoskeletal plates flaring. Your telekinetic field would crush the human vessel's already compromised hull. Our tactical shuttles can physically dock and extract the children safely. And navigate an asteroid field with your primitive thrusters? Sneers the Drelvi officer. You'd never reach them in time. Enough. I slam my reinforced glove onto a nearby console, leaving a satisfying dent in the human-made alloy. Every minute we waste arguing is another minute those children have less air to breathe. General Vaxor steps forward, his 4 primary eyes fixed on me. I propose a joint operation. My vessel will create a telekinetic corridor through the debris field. Your shuttles can traverse this safe passage to reach the transport. Ambassador Prell practically chokes. Absolutely not. That would require giving the Drelvi force field generators tactical control over our shuttle movements. They could crush our vessels at any moment. Or you could use the opportunity to scan our telekinetic field harmonics, counters the Drelvi attach. Military intelligence that would be worth 1,000 children to your empire. The room falls deathly silent at these words. Even the Drelvi seem shocked at their diplomat's callousness. It's Eliza who breaks the silence, stepping into the center of the command center. Her voice is quiet, but somehow cuts through the tension like a plasma blade. Do you know what human children learn about your species? She asks, looking between us. Nothing. They're too young to study galactic politics. They don't know Nexians from Drelvi. They don't understand why you've been killing each other for 2 centuries. She activates a display on her datapad. A grainy emergency transmission appears video feed from inside the stricken vessel. The image shows a compartment filled with small humans huddled together. Some appear to be crying. Others look directly at the camera with wide, frightened eyes. One tiny female child clutches a synthetic representation of a Nexian warrior to her chest, a toy fashioned after my own species. This is compartment B, Eliza says, the one that just lost 30% of its remaining oxygen. I feel something shift in my thoracic cavity, an unfamiliar sensation. In approximately 90 minutes. She continues. These children will either suffocate or be torn apart when their ship breaks up in the debris field. They will never grow up. They will never learn about your war. They will never have the chance to try to make a better galaxy than the one you've created. Her eyes are leaking fluid, now human tears. I've seen this biological response before, usually ignored it as a sign of weakness. Now, I'm not so sure. So please, she says, figure it out. I've been in combat situations where decisions were made in seconds, where lives hung in the balance of a single order. But I've never seen anything like the flurry of coordinated activity that followed Eliza's speech. Within 20 minutes, we had a joint rescue plan drafted, approved, and in motion. The journey to the damaged human vessel was tense. Our tactical shuttle cut through the Drelvi-maintained telekinetic corridor, a shimmering tunnel of energy that parted the debris field like some mythical pathway. Lieutenant Karis piloted with precise, nervous movements, while I sat in the jump seat beside General Vaxor himself. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say after 2 centuries of memorized hatred? Approaching target vessel, Karis announced. Docking will be challenging. Their port stabilizers are completely gone. Vaxor raised one of his limbs, the specialized appendage that contained his race's natural telekinetic organs. I will assist, he said simply. I felt the subtle shift as his personal telekinetic field extended around our shuttle, stabilizing our approach. Karis looked at me questioningly. I nodded. We'd just placed our lives in the hands of our sworn enemy. The docking procedure was rough but successful. As the airlock cycled, I checked my atmospheric suit one final time. Human environments were mostly compatible with Nexian physiology, but I wasn't taking chances with a damaged vessel. Life signs? I asked the Drelvi medical officer, Mikara, who had accompanied us. She consulted her biorhythmic scanner. Strongest concentration in 2 separate compartments. Weaker signals in the command module, likely the injured adults. We split into teams. Vaxor and his officers would retrieve the injured crew. My team would secure the children. Mikara, whose medical expertise was needed for both missions, would coordinate between us. The interior of the vessel was a testament to the damage it had sustained. Emergency lights flickered. Gravity fluctuated with each step. The bulkheads were bent and twisted in ways that spoke of catastrophic structural stress. We reached the sealed door to compartment B first. The control panel was dead, but the emergency manual release was intact. I gestured to my engineering specialist, who immediately set to work. Atmosphere readings? I asked. Oxygen levels at 42%. Dropping steadily, replied another officer. Estimated 17 minutes before critical levels. The door finally slid open with a painful mechanical groan. The scene inside froze me in place. 43 pairs of eyes, small, wide, wet with tears, turned toward us. The children were huddled in groups throughout the compartment, some clinging to each other, others standing protective over younger ones. Their faces registered shock at the sight of us, their first encounter with non-human sentience, and in such circumstances. A small human male, perhaps 6 years old by their measurements, stepped forward. His face was smudged with dirt, his breathing labored in the thinning air. In his arms, he still clutched the Nexian warrior toy I'd seen in the video feed. Are you here to help us?" he asked, his voice small but steady. I felt something strange happen then. A response deep in my biology, something primal and unexpected. My chromatophores, the color-changing cells beneath my exoskeleton that Nexians use for emotional signaling, began to pulse with a pattern I'd never experienced before. A rolling wave of deep blue, starting at my core and radiating outward. I wasn't the only one affected. Behind me, I heard Mikara make a strange clicking sound, the Drelvi equivalent of a gasp. Her tentacles were curling in a protective gesture I'd only seen in footage of Drelvi caring for their own young. "Yes," I said, dropping to one knee to be closer to the child's eye level. "We're here to help you. All of you." The child studied me for a long moment, then held out the toy soldier. "He looks like you," he said simply. I gently took the toy, examining it. A crude representation of a Nexian warrior, but recognizable. "Yes, he does. My dad says Nexians are the bravest soldiers in the galaxy," the boy continued. Several other children moved closer, their initial fear giving way to curiosity. I didn't know how to respond to that. What do you say to a child who has been taught to admire the very species that has been at war for his entire short life? Mikara stepped forward, her medical scanner already assessing the children. "Their oxygen absorption rates are dangerously low," she reported. "Heart rates elevated. The smaller ones are showing signs of respiratory distress." A tiny human female, younger than the boy, suddenly stumbled. Without thinking, I reached out and caught her. She weighed almost nothing in my armored arms, her eyes a startling shade of blue locked with mine. "Your skin is changing colors," she whispered in wonder. "We need to move quickly," I said, trying to focus on the mission rather than the strange sensations coursing through me. "Emergency breathers for everyone, then evacuation to the shuttle." As we distributed the breathing apparatus to the children, I couldn't help but notice that every alien in the room, Nexian and Drelvi alike, was exhibiting the same unusual physiological responses. The Drelvi's tentacles kept forming protective canopies over the smaller children. My own officers' chromatophores were pulsing in synchronized patterns of blue and violet. "What's happening to us?" asked one of my junior officers, staring at his own rippling color patterns. Mikara looked up from her scanner, her eyes widening. "Fascinating. Their pheromones are triggering cross-species nurturing responses. The chemical signals from vulnerable young humans appear to activate caretaking instincts in both our species. That's impossible, I said, even as I carefully adjusted the breathing mask on the little girl in my arms. Our species evolved on different worlds, different biological imperatives. And yet, Mikara replied, gesturing to the Nexian and Drelvi soldiers now gently helping children to their feet, checking their vitals, offering reassurances, here we are. With the first group of children secured in our shuttle, I found myself standing next to Mikara as she consulted with her superior, Dr. Nyx Beltar, who had joined us from the Drelvi vessel. The Drelvi xenobiologist was studying readings from the medical scanner with fascination, her secondary tentacles twitching with excitement. This is unprecedented, Dr. Beltar said, her translator capturing the musical overtones of genuine Drelvi scientific curiosity. Adult humans have never triggered these responses in either of our species. I watched as my officers gently secured safety harnesses around the smaller children, their chromatophores still pulsing in those strange, protective patterns. What's the difference? Dr. Beltar adjusted her scanner, focusing it on a young human female who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. The child was staring at the Drelvi doctor's tentacles with undisguised wonder rather than fear. Proportions, Dr. Beltar explained. Human children possess what they call neotenic features as enlarged craniums relative to their bodies, larger eyes, smaller nasal structures, rounded cheeks. These features persist longer in human offspring than in any other sentient species we've encountered. Why would that affect us biologically? I asked, genuinely curious despite myself. Because they're evolutionary triggers, Dr. Beltar continued. The human developmental period is remarkably long, nearly 2 decades before full maturity. This extended vulnerability created strong selective pressure for features that elicit protective responses, not just from their own species, but apparently from any sentient species capable of recognizing the patterns. A small human boy approached Dr. Beltar, seemingly fascinated by her scanning device. Without hesitation, the Drelvi scientist lowered one of her tentacles to eye level with the child, allowing him to touch it. The boy giggled as the tentacle curled gently around his finger in a playful manner. Their vocalizations too, she added. The higher pitch, the specific harmonic patterns of their distress calls, they're perfectly calibrated to trigger neurological responses across multiple species. Quite remarkable evolutionary adaptation. Lieutenant Karras approached, her chromatophores still pulsing blue. Commander, Shuttle 1 is loaded to capacity. We need to begin transferring the remaining children to the second shuttle. I nodded, but my attention was caught by a data stream on Dr. Beltar's scanner. What's that reading? Oxytocin analogs, she replied, or rather the Nexian and Drelvi equivalents. Our brains are flooding with bonding hormones, the same biochemicals released when we care for our own young. I stared at her. That's not possible. Our biochemistry is completely different from the Drelvi. And yet, Dr. Beltar gestured at the scanner, the patterns are undeniable. Different chemicals, similar neurological pathways, identical behavioral outcomes. As I processed this information, I caught sight of General Vaxor himself. The imposing Drelvi commander was personally carrying an unconscious human child, one of the smaller ones, showing signs of oxygen deprivation. His normally intimidating posture was completely transformed, his movements careful and gentle as he handed the child to a medical officer. Our eyes met across the compartment. For the first time in my life, I saw a Drelvi not as an enemy, not as an abomination, but as a fellow sentient being affected by the same protective impulse that was coursing through me. 200 years of war, I murmured, and it takes human children to make us see each other clearly. Time was running out. The stellar horizons had drifted deeper into the debris field, and the structural integrity of the vessel was failing faster than our initial estimates predicted. Each impact from even the smallest piece of space debris sent shudders through the hull that I could feel through my exoskeletal boots. Compartment A is showing signs of decompression, reported Lieutenant Karras, checking her scanner. We need to reach those children next. General Vaxor's communicator crackled. This is Assault Leader Prax. We've secured the 2 adult humans from the command module. Both are in critical condition. Returning to Shuttle 2 now. Understood, Vaxor replied. Commander Talorian and I will proceed to Compartment A. I looked at him sharply. Both of us? That's not protocol. Protocol died the moment we decided to work together, Vaxor said simply. Besides, my telekinetic abilities may be needed if the decompression worsens. He was right, of course. The passage to Compartment A would take us through the most heavily damaged section of the ship. Already, the emergency bulkheads were straining under the pressure differential. Hairline fractures spider-webbed across the ceiling panels, and warning lights flashed at every junction. 12 children in Compartment A, Dr. Beltar confirmed. Their life signs are weaker than the first group. We must hurry. We moved through the ship as quickly as safety allowed, an odd procession of former enemies now united in purpose. 2 Nexian officers, 3 Drelvi, and 2 human technicians from the neutral station who had volunteered for the mission. None of us spoke much. The focus was absolute. The first near disaster struck as we approached Junction 7. A violent impact rocked the ship, and the bulkhead ahead of us buckled inward with a metallic scream. Atmosphere began venting through a tear in the hull plating. Back, I shouted, but Vaxor stepped forward instead. The Drelvi general raised all 4 of his specialized limbs, their tips glowing with concentrated telekinetic energy. The escaping air seemed to slow, then stop entirely as he created a localized force field around the breach. Sweat, or whatever the Drelvi equivalent was, beaded on his metallic skin from the effort. I can't hold this indefinitely, he grunted. We need to seal it. One of the human technicians rushed forward with a patch kit. The vacuum of space pulled at her safety tether as she worked, her movements precise despite the danger. In under a minute, the emergency patch was in place. That won't hold for long, she warned as Vaxor released his telekinetic grip. This entire section is compromised. We doubled our pace. The ship groaned and shuddered around us, a dying beast making its final protests. At last, we reached Compartment A, only to find the door mechanism completely destroyed. Stand back, I ordered, deploying the plasma cutter from my utility arm. The specialized Nexian tool was designed for combat engineering, capable of cutting through battle-grade alloys. The human ship's door stood no chance. As the door fell away, we were hit by a wave of stale, thin air. The oxygen levels were critically low. Inside, 12 children huddled together in the center of the room, many of them barely conscious. Their skin had taken on a bluish tinge that even I recognized as dangerous for humans. Emergency breathers. I called out, and our team rushed in with the devices. The second disaster struck without warning. A massive impact sent the ship lurching sideways. The artificial gravity failed completely, and loose debris became deadly projectiles in the zero-G environment. A jagged piece of ceiling panel broke free, hurtling directly toward a cluster of children. Without hesitation, a Drelvi officer named Thex threw himself into the path of the debris. It struck him squarely in the torso, piercing his atmospheric suit. Purple Drelvi blood immediately began seeping into the air in globular droplets. Get the children secured. Thex gasped, even as Mikara rushed to his side. We worked frantically, attaching breathers to the children and securing them to our harnesses. Many were too weak to hold on themselves. I found myself carrying 3 small humans, their tiny bodies limp against my armored chest. This section is about to depressurize completely, warned one of the human technicians, checking a structural scanner. We have maybe 2 minutes. We were nearly at the exit when the third disaster struck. The entire ship seemed to twist, metal shrieking as something massive collided with the outer hull. The floor beneath us buckled, creating a chasm between our group and the exit. "We're cut off," Lieutenant Karras shouted. Vaxor looked at me, his 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. "I can create a telekinetic bridge, but not while carrying children. And not for long." I made an instant decision. "Transfer the children to me and my officers." "Commander, that's too many," Karras began. "Do it," I ordered. Quickly, the Drelvi officers transferred their precious cargo to us Nexians. I found myself burdened with 5 small humans, their combined weight straining even my enhanced strength. Each Nexian now carried multiple children, while the Drelvi stood empty-handed at the edge of the chasm. Vaxor took position at the center of their group. "Move quickly when I create the bridge. I cannot maintain it for more than 30 seconds. With a gesture that seemed both elegant and impossibly powerful, Vaxor and his officers extended their specialized limbs. The air between us and the exit shimmered, solidifying into an invisible walkway. "Now," Vaxor commanded, his voice strained. We moved as one, Nexians carrying human children across a bridge of Drelvi telekinetic energy. The ship continued to break apart around us, alarms blaring, metal twisting. I could feel Vaxor's strength failing as we neared the other side, the bridge becoming less stable with each step. Lieutenant Karras slipped, nearly falling into the widening chasm below. I reached out with my free hand, catching her harness and hauling her back onto the invisible path, nearly dropping one of the children in the process. 10 seconds, Vaxor warned, his voice barely audible over the ship's death throes. We made it across just as the telekinetic bridge collapsed. The Drelvi officers fell to their knees in exhaustion, their specialized limbs trembling from the effort. "We need to move," I said, helping Vaxor to his feet. "This entire section is about to go." Together we raced back toward the waiting shuttles, former enemies now running side by side to save lives neither of us had been programmed to value. Behind us, with a final, tortured groan, compartment had depressurized completely, the vacuum of space claiming another piece of the dying vessel. But the children were safe in our arms, and somehow, that was all that mattered. The journey back to Neutral Ground Station Alpha was considerably less tense than our departure had been. Our shuttles flew side by side through space, the Drelvi telekinetic corridor no longer necessary now that we'd cleared the debris field. On board, exhausted children slept under thermal blankets, while medical personnel Nexian, Drelvi, and human alike tended to the injured. Officer Thex survived his injuries, though Drelvi medical technology would need to regrow significant portions of his pulmonary system. The 2 adult crew members were stabilized but remained in critical condition. And all 43 children, every single one, would live. As I sat in the shuttle's command chair, watching Lieutenant Karras pilot us home, I found myself still carrying the small human female who had commented on my chromatophores. She had refused to let go of my armored arm, and eventually fell asleep still clutching it. The strange blue pulsing beneath my exoskeleton hadn't subsided either. Approaching docking sequence, Karras announced as the station came into view. "They've prepared the medical bay for our arrival." The reception at the station was unlike anything I'd experienced in my military career. Cheers erupted from the assembled humans as we disembarked. Medical teams rushed forward to take charge of the children, and I found myself oddly reluctant to hand over my small passenger to the human doctors. "She'll be fine, Commander," Eliza Morgan assured me, appearing at my side. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry now. "You've done something remarkable today." "Not just me," I replied, looking across the bay where General Vaxor was similarly surrendering his charges to medical personnel. Our eyes met again, and this time, there was something like respect in his gaze. 3 days later, we reconvened in the conference room where our diplomatic farce had begun. But something fundamental had changed. Ambassador Prell and his Drelvi counterpart sat side by side rather than across from each other, reviewing terms on a shared data pad. General Vaxor stood near me at the viewport, both of us gazing out at the stars in companionable silence. "They're going to make a diplomatic incident out of this. You know," I finally said. "Heroes of two warring species, setting aside their differences to save human children. It's almost too perfect a propaganda opportunity." Vaxor made the clicking sound that I now recognized as Drelvi amusement. "Indeed, my intelligence officers are already concerned I've been compromised by human biological warfare." "Biological warfare?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Is that what we're calling it?" "What would you call it?" he asked, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. 43 small humans managed to accomplish what 2 centuries of diplomacy could not. I considered this. Dr. Beltar's theory about evolutionary adaptations is fascinating, but I think there's more to it. Something about seeing those children so vulnerable, so unaware of our conflicts, it forced us to look beyond our programming. Perhaps, Vaxor agreed, we needed something to remind us of what comes after war. We fell silent again, watching as a small transport ship departed the station. On board were the recovered children, heading home to Earth. Several had left drawings for their rescuers, crude but heartfelt depictions of Nexians and Drelvi standing together with human children between them. One such drawing was now prominently displayed in the conference room. "They've requested that both our governments send representatives to Earth," Eliza informed us, joining us at the viewport. "For a formal recognition ceremony. The children want to thank you personally." I snorted. Politicians never waste a good crisis, or a good photo opportunity. "True," she acknowledged with a smile. "But this time, perhaps the politics might actually serve a greater purpose." Later that day, as treaty negotiations resumed, I watched Ambassador Prell make an unprecedented concession regarding the disputed Procyon system, the very territory whose ownership had sparked our 2-century conflict. The Drelvi representatives responded with an equally generous proposal for shared mining rights. "Compromise," I muttered under my breath. Who would have thought? "Not compromise," corrected Vaxor, who had somehow heard me despite being across the room. "Evolution." And perhaps he was right. Perhaps we were evolving beyond our ancient hatreds. All because of human children, tiny, vulnerable creatures who had inadvertently deployed the most effective peacekeeping weapon in galactic history, themselves. As I signed my name to the preliminary treaty document, the first genuine peace agreement between our species in 200 years, I couldn't help but think that the humans had outsmarted us all. After all, what better way to ensure your species' survival than to evolve offspring so irresistibly worthy of protection that even your enemies would lay down their lives to save them? Clever, clever humans. No wonder they'd managed to position themselves at the center of galactic politics despite their fragile bodies and short lifespans. They'd been playing the long game all along. And for once in my military career, I was perfectly fine with having been tactically outmaneuvered.